Yeah.
All right, so now we can get into kind of some of the example projects that we've either recently completed or we're about to take on. Um, so first we'll start off with RSW, which is where our offices are. We recently completed this ARF station, which is the Aircraft Rescue and Firefighting Facility. It's basically our fire department. It the firemen actually live there. This is like their residence. So I'm not sure if you can see it. Yep, you can see it like right here. They've got their little basketball court back here. They've got a gym inside. And actually, just kind of a fun fact for this project, these guys have to make it out to the runway. I think it's like in 3 minutes if there's an emergency. And so these doors, the fire station doors, are actually required to open up. I think it's within 16 seconds. That's a just a permit requirement or a design requirement for the fire station. And after the completion of the project, they realized that the doors were just not opening quick enough. And so shortly after completion, they had to do a change order, which required additional $1 million per door to replace the doors and make sure that we can put in a system that allows the firemen to reach their destination within the time that they're required to. So that's kind of a special consideration that, like I was touching on earlier, you have to take into account. And it would have been nice to actually have caught that before they went in and installed these doors and then had to go in and replace them with doors that cost $1 million a piece. And there's contingency, but I'm not sure. This was before I arrived here, so I'm not sure how they handled that one. Um, the apron expansion. So as you can see here, this is the project that I just touched on. It's the ARF building. This is the current terminal location. And so this is actually the site of the new tower here that we'll get to in a little bit. So the apron expansion is all this slightly darker pavement that you see here. And it's in preparation for the parallel runway, which we'll also touch on, and hopefully one day get to construct if we're still working and not retired. So yeah, basically this project was just to get prepared for that portion of future development. And yeah, as you can see here, this is actually a great picture. It shows you the ARF location. And if there's an emergency and there's an airplane touching down and they're going to come to a rest at this end of the runway, these guys are required from the time that the call comes in, they have to leave, get up, get suited, and drive all the way down within 3 minutes and be ready to put out a fire if they need to, or provide medical aid. So this is kind of a cool picture, just kind of showing an overall uh, overhead view. And then, as I mentioned earlier, our CCTV system, it's controlled from the aircom room, which this is just a little picture that you can kind of get a feel for what they do down there. It's pretty cool, actually. They have two big screens down there up on the wall, and anytime that somebody uses a badge and they're accessing areas, these guys know about it like in live time. They can tell, okay, I just opened the door to get into so-and-so room, or if an alarm goes off, cameras will make sure that they alert them and that they get the live view immediately. So again, I don't know how many cameras there are around the airport for sure, but it's a pretty secure place.
Okay, here, I'll jump into this one. As I was mentioning before, the Hazardous Wildlife Project, pretty much the airport was built on marshland. You know, you can pretty much see from the aerial here, all those brown areas are pretty much wetlands. So the airport was kind of built out in the wilderness when it was built back in 1985 originally. So anyway, it was perfect habitat for wildlife. And just until recently, you know, we had a bunch of these canals or ponds, if you will, that pretty much took all the runoff from all the taxiways and runways. And it was just perfect habitat for wildlife, gators, mainly birds, which was the big issue. So anyways, we ended up riprapping pretty much all the canals in the AOA area, which is where the aircraft operate. Um, which, if you don't know what riprap is, basically large stones that they put on the embankment of each canal, pretty much preventing birds from landing on the. They don't like walking on the rocks from fishing and whatnot. So it's been a huge deterrent. Um, Actually, we used to before the project, we used to have a what was it? A hazardous wildlife dog, whatnot. Operations used a dog to run after birds or scare them off the airport. But ever since this project um, was done, there's just been really no need for it. And they actually ended up getting rid of their dog. So we have no more hazardous wildlife dog at the airport, which was pretty cool to see.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's
that was a yeah, I know,
we lost our
I know,
pup, man.
I know. It was pretty cool to see. But yeah, this project has been a tremendous help. Like I said, the funding, the Miracle on the Hudson. If y'all don't remember, that was when I think it was a Delta flight out of uh, New York City, ended up hitting a flock of geese or something and had to land in the Hudson. Ever since then, hazardous wildlife has been a huge um, thing for FAA around airports in the U.S. So um, we secured funding for this pretty easily just because it's a safety concern. Um, as I mentioned earlier, the baggage handling system. This is the large spaghetti uh, plot of conveyors that are below the terminal. You put your check bag on that conveyor and it disappears back behind the wall there. Well, this is where it goes. Goes through all these conveyors and through the um, EDS machine. EDS machines, which is the explosive detection system. Those are the white machines on the right side of your screen there. Pretty much each bag goes in there, and that machine detects, mainly for explosives or any kind of thing that could, hurt somebody on a plane or whatnot, weapons, uh, liquids, all that kind of stuff will come up on a screen. And the machines are so hefty, they're huge because they're meant to contain an explosion if some device did go off. So they're pretty, they say they're bomb proof. So hopefully they are if something like that ever happened. But so yeah, we had to upgrade the machines on for this project just to keep up with the passenger traffic. We basically had 7 machines down there, and it was a nightmare with maintenance. All the conveyors, the machines constantly going down. So as technology progressed, we ended up getting going down to 4 machines from 7 because the machines with technology they were able to upgrade the amount of bags per hour they could process. So pretty much effectively made less parts, less conveyor, less machines to maintain moving forward, and we were still able to process the same number of bags and more. So it was a good project. It definitely difficult to do during live operations because that's a good project for phasing because we can't shut the airport down. So a lot of night work on that one, and if one machine was down, we had to use the other ones, and vice versa. So it was a very phased project, did over 2-3 years before it was finally completed. So it definitely took a while.
You know what we need to do, David, is kind of show them some of the pictures that we've received over time of stuff
Oh yeah,
that
yeah.
they passengers will sometimes shove down these machines.
Oh
I've
yeah,
received
oh
pictures
yeah.
from our operations or maintenance that have the buckets with like shrimp. It was just fresh
Yeah, you.
shrimp. It wasn't even cooked yet, and they had just dumped it into a basket that was going through security. So it seems like it would be an easy task to maintain this system and keep it going, but uh, we have a lot of complex components that go into play that kind of make it difficult sometimes.
Oh yeah, yeah. And if any of these machines go down too, they end up having to use canine dogs to sniff all the bags, which those are way more efficient. They can do like 30 bags at a time. So I kind of wish they would just go to that, but they'd probably be up in
Uh,
arms about animal cruelty.
so um, if you drive down Daniels, you'll see at the corner of Daniels and Paul J. Doherty, there's the Publix. It's been around now for a couple of years, but this is actually still considered airport property. And so this is, as you see up here, it's called a tenant project. So it's not handled by David or myself directly. We have a small team that handles just tenant projects where um, they will actually lease the land out and somebody will come in with their own development team. So we won't be responsible of the design and construction. So this one right here is, for example, is the Publix, and there's like a Moe's in there, stuff like that. So this is just kind of some of the projects that take place on airport property, but David and I just don't oversee it directly. As opposed to this project, which this one is one of mine. It's the rental car facility relocation. So the original location was up near the old terminal, and now we're trying to move it to this new location that's closer to the new terminal location. And the reason for that is actually it helps reduce some of the traffic that's on our roads, and it also helps the rental car companies out. It reduces the miles that they have to drive and the time, because I mean, that's time is money. So it will help them reduce their expenses by moving the maintenance facility closer to their operations. And so that's kind of an example of buy-in to get the rental car companies to buy into a project, because after all, they will be providing funding for a project like this. So just kind of an example of kind of some of the previous subjects that we've touched on and kind of how it applies here. So with this, it's a 40-acre lot, and we'll have car maintenance bays, car wash, oil changes, stuff like that. And it'll be secure to make sure that nobody can come in and mess with the cars or steal their vehicles. And eventually, we would be looking to expand the parking garage, because they also operate out of the parking garage. And that would be like a second phase of the project. So like, as David was talking about with phasing and costs, kind of distributing the cost that's not needed all up front. So this one's a pretty big one. I don't know, David, if you want to throw out any facts on this one.
Pretty much this one's our big project of the year. I mean, it was going to start, but COVID kind of put a squash on it for now. I don't know. I think it was $200 million, I believe, George, for this one.
Yeah, it was pushing a little bit north of that now.
Yeah. So pretty much this was a project to expand the main terminal there for one TSA checkpoint. So I don't know how many you've flown out of RSW, but each concourse has its own TSA checkpoint, which is just inefficient. And we just don't have any room to expand to get more lanes for checking passengers. So this project was mainly for that, to expand the main terminal one TSA checkpoint. I think it was 10 lanes, I believe, something like that, that they were going to put out on the backside of the main terminal there. And
be right here.
pretty much just allow any passenger, once you go to the airport, you go through security, and then you'll be able to go to any concourse. It'll be a secure area then. So really cool project.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. Go.
I was just going to say, because currently with the way the airport's set up, if you guys aren't familiar, there's a security checkpoint at the end of concourse B, and then there's one over here, and then one over at D. So once you've gone through security, it's kind of a hassle, because you're kind of limited to whatever food options you have over here. So if you wanted to go grab something from, say, Dunkin' Donuts over on B, you'd have to go through security, come back. So with the way that we're looking to do it, you can see here the footprint in blue. We're looking to expand the terminal out towards the airfield, and there would be a central checkpoint here. And once you get through it, you actually would be able to go anywhere you wanted within the airport. So it's kind of a nice feature that would kind of open it up to all the passengers. But unfortunately, with funding and COVID, it has been pushed back. But we'll be seeing that hopefully go into construction sometime next year. And that's probably a project that all of us will be hands-on with, just because it's going to be such a huge project. It'll be a direct impact to all the passengers at all times. So a lot of night work from the crew, and it should be fun though. It'll be fun to go through something so drastic. The rehab of landside roads. So this one is, like I was mentioning earlier, it's mainly a heavy site project or site civil, where we're looking to realign this loop. So as you recall, this is the old location of the terminal. So you would come up, you would drop off your passenger, and then you would take off. Well, we no longer need this loop or this parking lot out here because now all the operations are on the south side. So we're looking to actually realign this road, and that will kind of open up all this space up here to either we can use it for airside operations if we want to put maybe hangars for use by any flight companies, or if we wanted to turn a portion of it into landside operations and put some businesses or whatnot, it will just open up kind of some options for us. And then all these roads here will just be getting repaved. So it's just kind of touching on just all the different parts of the job that we kind of have to take on. Oh, David, you're on mute.
Sorry, thanks. Airside pavement rehab. This is similar to the project George just mentioned for landside, but pretty much this is just airside. So all
A little
the
more
taxiways.
exciting.
Yeah, a little more complicated. It's just, as you can see, all the colors. This is a photo of one of the design documents for phasing. Obviously, the airport's not going to close when we do this, so it has to be very phased to allow aircraft operations to still take off and land. We actually are starting this month with closures. Probably going to start on the north side there, taxiway Alpha, and then work our way to the main parallel taxiway on the south there, which is Foxtrot. That's the one that the majority of the aircraft use at RSW because the terminal's on the south side. So yeah, this is a big project, around $11 million to complete this one. So it'll be about a year construction before it's completely done. But when it is, it should be smooth taxiing all the way to the runway. So should be flying.
All right. And so I'm not sure if any of you guys have driven down this new road that connects Chamberlain and Daniels, but it's called Skyflex Boulevard, and it was just recently completed about, what are we? Wow, it feels like just recently, but it was at the beginning of this year before COVID, so it feels like a very long time ago. So with this one, it was about a half-mile long road, and so we added a roundabout. There was a bridge, so it was a lot of structural engineering going on with the bridge. There was heavy civil with the roadway. And that one was definitely cool to see a brand new road pop up because, I mean, before this all just continued. There was just vast trees and wetlands that we just cut through and just built a brand new road out of it. So it was pretty cool to see that kind of take shape right in front of your eyes. And then there's completed picture right there. Actually, they didn't put the final striping down yet, so it's not quite complete, but everything else is done. You can see all the nice landscaping that David was talking about. We had the jam project full of landscaping for some reason, and it was a nightmare trying to fit utilities with all the landscaping in the tight spaces.
Yeah, it's just south of the Red Sox Stadium for those of y'all who know where that is. So it kind of connects there. So ticket counter modernization. I don't know how many of y'all flown out recently, but we recently just upgraded all our ticket counters to being more modern and 21st century looking. You can see that squash color on the left. That was real 80s like. So really glad to see those things gone now. Much more modern, LED, backlit screens behind them. We don't actually have a final photo here, but yeah, it definitely looks more modern, makes the ticket counters just pop, looks a lot better for the public, and just the facility brings it all up to the 21st century. So that was a cool little project that we just completed as well. So.
All right.
Oh, this is the cool one. You can do it, George.
Well, yeah, so this one's actually currently under construction, and right before I came back to start this presentation, I had the opportunity to go out and do a little site visit, and So yeah, as we mentioned, we're adding a parallel runway, and so the existing location of the current tower would not have allowed the air traffic controllers to be able to look over and see traffic on the other side of the terminal. So we decided that we would install this new location, just to kind of give them a better view all around of our airfield. And so I think it's like 185 feet up, or no, sorry, it's over 200 feet high. Here, it's on one of these sheets. Um, well, here, let me get into this picture with the foundation. So I'm not sure if we touched on the nearby quarry earlier, but um, obviously with a high structure like this, you do need a deep foundation, but it's actually even more crucial because just about, I don't know, half a mile away, probably even less, there's a quarry where they do mining activities. And so they blast probably every other day, which sends a shock wave through the ground nearby. We can all feel it up here on the third floor of the terminal. So just imagine what it would be like that high up in the tower. So they had to really take into consideration the deep foundation for the tower and make sure that um, it wasn't going to impact the controllers up in the cab, because those guys, I mean, they have to be locked in, focused, and if they're trying to navigate some airplanes that are kind of crisscrossing, and then all of a sudden the building starts shaking from a mining blast, it could kind of throw them off a little bit. I can see how that would be distracting. So they have to kind of take into consideration the foundation. We actually had a really cool BIM model that was developed with all the utilities in 3D that you kind of just take the building and rotate it and look inside and kind of go up the tower, and it will show you where everything is located spatially, like in real time. Um, Unfortunately, it sounds like they're not using that model when they go out there and construct the building, but it was pretty cool just to have something like that put together that you can kind of see during the design phase and see how it would eventually look. Um, and obviously, the aesthetic part of the tower is a big feature, whereas a lot of the towers that you'll see around the country, it is FAA funded, so they usually try and go for like the cheapest thing, but we kind of tried to put a little bit of style to it. And I'm not sure if we have, let's see, I think we removed the picture of the colors. Man, that's unfortunate. But yeah, it's supposed to look really nice at night with lights kind of shining up. So it'll be a really cool tower when it's done. This is what it looks like right now. I think I took this picture maybe 2 weeks ago. Um, and yeah, it's going to be, like I said, over 200 feet from ground to the cab floor. And actually, like I said, right before I came to this presentation, I was out in the field and I got to take this picture from up on the tower. This was the C-17 that's landing there. It's a pretty cool military plane. Um, and yeah, you get to see a really cool view from the top. American flag right there, the U.S. Air Force airplane. So it was kind of just a cool view to get to see. It was good timing. It got to come in and landed as we were up there taking a look. So
this is a future project, parallel runway. Obviously, we only have one runway at RSW. So we've always needed a second one, or wanted a second one. I shouldn't say need, because the need really comes to justifying with FAA whether we need it or not. So pretty much to justify a parallel runway, we have to have a certain number of operations, which is landings and departures every year. And FAA takes that into consideration on an annual basis. And we just have not hit the threshold to justify a parallel runway yet, unfortunately. So anyways, it doesn't affect us planning for one. This one will pretty much go on the south side of the airport when you're coming in on Terminal Access Road. If you look off to the right, where we had that huge fire back in April, pretty much right there is where the parallel runway is going to go. It's about a mile, I think, difference between the existing runway and where the new one's going to go. So that'll greatly affect us getting work done on the existing facilities, mainly the taxiways and runways. So, you know, when we have to rehab the existing runway, you know, they can divert all traffic to the new one, and we can just hop on there and go. It'll cut down on the amount of costs for construction as well. So save us a lot of money in the long run. So yeah,
Yeah, I
this will
mean,
be a huge project.
yeah, I mean that gives us the ability to just shut down the current runway if we wanted to, and just repave it all in one shot while operations go on the second runway, as opposed to what David showed earlier with the phasing of the airfield rehab project that he has, where they have to do it just in small sections at a time, and a lot of time you don't get a big window each day to do each phase, so it just kind of drags out the project and costs start increasing. So this would definitely be awesome, especially, I mean, if there was like an emergency where something happened with our current runway, it wouldn't render us kind of useless and not being able to do anything. We'd have that backup. So it is very much needed, but it's just trying to convince those who are behind the funding that we really do need it.
And then just to touch on Page Field, I know we've all been talking about RSW, but we do projects at Page Field as well. We recently completed the rehab of both runways at Page Field. This is 523 in this photo, but we actually did 1331 as well. So we pretty much just updated the geometry, new taxiways, straightened out some connectors there, and made much more sense than how it was piecemealed back in World War II. Just brought it up to date, new pavement and everything. So Page Field pretty much is all brand new, the airfield. It's beautiful out there. The pavement's smooth as glass. So they've really done a great job with just updating that whole airport. And it's really nice for all the local pilots who fly out of there for leisure or business. So that was a great project to be on. Multi-use aircraft hangar, just completed this one this past year. Pretty much a huge bulk hangar for holding small general aviation planes and jets. You can see the rendering there on the top left, and then the actual aerial when it's completed on the bottom right. Pretty much the new hangar is right there on Fowler Street. It was 25,000 square feet. It was about a $4 or $5 million project in total. We added some ramp there for parking spaces. So yeah, that was a cool project. It's pretty much all pre-engineered, the whole structure of it. So they pretty much do the site work, get it all ready, and then once the foundation's in, they pretty much deliver, and it's like a Lego set. They put it all together, put the bolts in, and it goes up really, really quick during construction. So yeah, that was a really neat project at Page as well. Now just trying to jump into some of the internal organization of how LCPA is laid out. We call them the doers. Your engineering construction department, which is what George and I work in. We work hand in hand with our planning department, which they pretty much lay out the plan of the airport and whatnot. It kind of goes into master plan and ALP updates. They're the ones who handle out the real future of the airport before it gets into an engineering and construction time zone. Environmental compliance, that's part of the planning as well. Then we have our government affairs, as George mentioned. They pretty much are responsible for securing grants and funds. We have our DBE, which is a disadvantaged business enterprise, which is pretty much for, since we're a public entity, we have to reach out to, businesses that may not have the same opportunities as your larger businesses per se. So there's a huge federal program for that. That kind of enlists all the details to qualify as a DBE. And then we have our development services department. They pretty much do existing facilities and CAD work, GIS, and then all the contract management that we deal with as engineers and contract managers. They're the ones who write up all the contracts, make sure they get executed, and any change orders we might have for construction. So that's pretty much our whole development division there. The other divisions that we work with, obviously we collaborate with a lot. Purchasing and finance, got to have the money, and they're the ones who help create the budget for a project. Maintenance department, every one of our projects, once it's done with construction, we turn it over to maintenance, and they're the ones who have to deal with it until, we either have to rehab it or replace it. Obviously operations, they're the ones who pretty much coordinate with the airlines on when aircraft, where they're parking, where they're going. We deal with them, especially on airside projects, the most. So they're responsible for, making sure everything's safe out there during construction. Everything's following the ACs. Public relations. We do have a public relations department. They reach out to the public. You've probably seen them on NBC or ABC whenever the president comes. Actually, he's coming, I think, tomorrow. They do a lot of public outreach, especially with noise. We have a lot of meetings with local jurisdictions and whatnot to make sure a project, if we're going to affect the public in any way, negatively or positively, that we're out there in front of it and knowing what's happening. Properties, they pretty much handle all the lease agreements that we have with tenants, whether it's in the terminal or airside, UPS, FedEx, that type of thing. They pretty much handle all the contracts and leases with those tenants. And then we have our risk management, which is kind of like safety. Every kind of organization has one of those, so manage risk.
All right, so I can jump in here. This is kind of just, hopefully we haven't lost you guys. You all have your cameras off. Typically when we're there in person, you can see when somebody's like sleeping in the back. Hopefully not everybody's sleeping right now.
At least I'm wake up, okay? I'm still here.
Are we good on time long? How long do we have?
Anyways, we'll kind of real quick with this. It's just kind of just an example of a typical project that we'll go through. We'll identify when there's a need for something, where we want it to go, with like in the planning process. So we determined that for this example, air traffic control tower, we knew that there was eventually going to be a parallel runway. That was the need to make sure that we had the field of view for the controllers to be able to see the entire airfield. So there was a planning period where they had to do their site analysis and their height analysis and go and top the trees or try and figure out what was going to give them the proper field of view in their sites. Secured the funding, the site design, moving into the design development. That was, like I said, there's the three big submittals. There's the milestones that you have to hit, the 30, 60, 90, going through the permitting, through the FAA, through the local Lee County. So as you see, you start from 2010, you go, finally, we were able to bid the project in 2019. It felt like it was a long time coming, and I'd only been here for 2 years at that point. So it was like, must have felt like a lifetime for people that were here before me. And then now we're in construction. We're probably about halfway through construction. And once we finish up with the tower, we hand it over to the FAA. They'll commission the building, and then they'll take full ownership of it at that point. And we're looking at over a decade worth of planning and work for this idea to finally take shape and form and actually have something out there that we've built. So it moves very slowly, but it is a huge thing to kind of set into motion. So it kind of just gives you a perspective, kind of big picture of what we have to do with the planning and construction schedule. So project management opportunities in aviation. So David and I's positions are not the only ones in aviation that you can get as a civil engineer. There's the airport operator, which is us, but we work with consultants who are engineers as well, and they specialize in designing pavement, like the runways, taxiways, all the geometry. Just like you would have a transportation engineer design their roadways, you got consultants that will specialize in aviation design.
How about the opportunity for environmental engineer?
Environmental, of course, yeah. Within our development division, we have environmental specialists that work and help with the planning and permitting, and kind of I'm not really too sure on what environmental engineers do, because I was at one point signed up to be an environmental engineer, but then I got into the chem classes and I'm like, no, I think I'll stick with civil. So there are opportunities for sure for the environmental engineers. I know it's a huge concern coming up with protecting the environment. And so with permitting and all that, there's definitely an opportunity for them within aviation. And like I said, we work with them just a couple doors down from me. So you've got the FAA, State Aviation Office, your DOT, your airlines, TSA. So there's a lot of opportunities for civil engineers. If they enjoy aviation, there's a lot of opportunity for you guys to move into a field where you can kind of work within something that involves aviation. So hopefully we haven't taken too long. Just kind of want to wrap this up here real quick. Hopefully you guys, you should all, I believe you should be juniors. Just push hard. I know it's tough times right now with COVID, kind of having to sit through these video lectures instead of us kind of being there in person. I know I would have preferred to be there in person, kind of see you guys face to face, but hopefully you were able to get something out of this. Just push hard. I know it's challenging times, but you're almost there. Just finish up and take your FE, take your PE as soon as possible. Now that you guys are able to, you can take it right after your FE. I had to wait the 4 years. Take it as soon as you can while that stuff's still fresh in your mind. And just always be trying to take on new challenges and open to new opportunities. If you find yourself in a position after you graduate that you're not in love with or whatever, just don't be afraid to pursue a new opportunity like I did. I moved down from Orlando to a completely new area, and it's been awesome since I got out here. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if now, I guess we can open it up to questions now. I know you've all been on mute. If you're alive, if you're awake, let us know if